before I was born, my family lived in Memphis. And if you've ever seen those stories about Elvis Presley with the rabbi, that was my late father. And I can't take
Elvis Presley with a rabbi?
Yeah. Look him up. You'll see Rabbi Alfred Fufter. That was my father.
He was with this guy that I had met through the people. And we started talking and we spent the evening after I got off work at midnight talking the whole night. And he was getting out of active duty on the Army and I was looking for a roommate. And so the next day we moved in together. You know what? I'm going to come to Shul every Shabbos in Davin, Musaf, in Zechus of my boys getting married. And I started Parshas Breshis and I have not missed Shul since.
Wow.
And I go during Torah reading and I daven, and I actually daven all of Musaf. I don't just daven Shmones, right? And one got engaged December 19th and one got engaged January 12th. I don't know. I just have two boys that just got engaged and both of them were pretty dramatic. Like I was like, don't you want to go out with her more than 3 times before you get engaged? Because like that didn't work out so well for your mom. So you want to rethink that process.
Sarah and Max, an unlikely pair in this wild podcast, they're the perfect flair. Sarah's charm, so feminine and free, a Cali girl spirit under the podcast tree. Max a strong force with a punch in every word. Together they navigate the dating absurd. Don't forget to hit subscribe, join the crew for more laughs and tales just for you. Now back to the show.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Good for Shidduchim. I'm your host, Sarah Levine, and unfortunately, with us today, Max could not come, so we're very upset. But hopefully, this podcast is going to be just the same. Hopefully, he's here in spirit, and everybody knows exactly what Max is thinking. So we'll still go through with it and we'll stay strong. If you want to follow us on Instagram, please follow us Good for Shidduchim and email us goodforshidduchim@gmail.com. Please like our page, subscribe to our page, and give us a thumbs up and a 5-star review. So this episode, we wanted to have Hannah and Marla. Hannah actually reached out to us via email, and she actually brought up a very interesting point that I was ignorant of, which is people who are dating at a certain age, who are either divorced or widowed or are in a different type of community. And we've been gearing more towards communities of, I would say, more of the younger single type and who are kind of more one-dimensional. So it brought up a whole other category that we would love to speak about. So we have Hannah here with us and Marla. So welcome, ladies. It is, it's like a ladies' corner. Max isn't here, but we'll have to put in his snippy comments. But if you just want to give us, Hannah, if you want to start with yourself, just give us a background about you and where you're from.
Sure. So hi, everyone. I'm Hannah. This question, where am I from? I actually have no idea. My family moved around a lot when I was growing up. My late father was a synagogue rabbi at a time when Orthodox shul rabbis did not have a lot of choices of jobs, and Orthodoxy was not as popular as it is today. So we moved around a lot. I was born in Oakland, California. We lived in San Francisco. We lived in a small town called Ontario, California. Then we moved to the East Coast, to Warwick, Rhode Island. Then South Bend, Indiana, way before South Bend was ever the community it is now. And then Watertown, New York, and Troy, New York. I have 4 older siblings. Before I was born, my family lived in Memphis. And if you've ever seen those stories about Elvis Presley with the rabbi, that was my late father. And I can't take
Elvis Presley with a rabbi?
Yeah. Look him up. You'll see Rabbi Alfred Fufter. Okay. That was my father.
Wow.
And my parents were instrumental in starting the Hebrew Academy. It used to be called the Memphis Hebrew Academy. Now it's the Margolin Hebrew Academy. But it all kind of came full circle because my daughter ended up settling in Memphis and my grandkids go to the Margolin Hebrew Academy. So my parents would be so happy to know their great grandkids are in the academy. So that's how I answer where I'm from. Sometimes I say I'm from Troy, New York, because that was my dad's last position. That's where he was buried. That's where my parents are both buried. My late husband and I we met in New York, we lived in New Jersey, and then we came to Baltimore in 1996. So unfortunately, he died of cancer of unknown primary in 2002. So he only got to enjoy Baltimore for a short time.
Oh,
But
wow.
this is a wonderful community. I've been very happy here.
Wow, amazing. Well, I have cousins in Oakland, California, so it's not totally foreign to me. But yeah.
I have zero memory of it because I was an infant, so I couldn't even
Oh,
tell you what the place
okay.
looks like.
Okay. And what about you, Marla?
So I'm originally from Dallas, Texas, and I met my husband when he was in the Army. And we moved 18 times in the first 16 years we were married. A little crazy. We kept
Wow.
coming back to Baltimore, and I kind of settled here in 2003 for the last time, but I was here before that. Like Hannah and Craig and I and Charlie, we knew each other when they first moved here, because that was one of the times we had moved back. But we settled here in 2003, and I've been here ever since. So, but the first 16 years were a little crazy. They were a lot of states and a lot of places. So,
I mean, yeah, 16. I don't even know how
18,
that. Oh,
18 places in
18.
16 years. It was a
It
lot
was
Wow.
so
of
stressful.
moves.
I don't know how you did that.
It was crazy. Well, some of them were in the same city. So, like in Baltimore, in one
Still.
year, I lived in 3 different
I
places.
remember that. I remember you guys changed addresses a
Right.
few
Remember, we
times.
came back, we lived in Falstaff Manor, and then Charlotte and my team moved out of their house and we moved into their house.
Oh, okay.
So
Still, even moving down the block, I find stressful. Like,
It is to
honestly.
move like that.
I was
Yeah.
pregnant and I was super sick. And I'll never forget this. We had moved out of the apartment and moved into our rental house, and I had dogs, and they got into the trash bags that were left in the apartment and got sick in the apartment. But I was so sick from being pregnant that I couldn't clean it up. And my ex was military, so he was gone all the time. So he was basically useless. So I had to have a friend come over and clean up after my dogs in my empty apartment. It
Oh
was
my God.
so
You know what?
stressful.
You gotta
Moves
do
were
what
so
you gotta
stressful.
do. Like,
Yeah.
no shame. You gotta do
No
what you gotta
shame.
do.
Yeah. I was like,
That's
oh, we gotta go.
crazy.
Yeah, it was crazy.
Okay,
So
so
we bought our house in
you both.
2003, and that was it. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Okay, great. Oh no, I was gonna say, so how do you guys both know each other?
Well, I initially met Marla when she was married at somebody's Shabbos table. And then,
Mm.
over the years, I know she had left and come back, and we just traveled in different circles. But then Marla is so involved in so much chesed in the community. And she started
Mm.
inviting people over. So I came over for a few Shabbos meals, and her mother comes for the yuntifs and helps her with the cooking. And cooking is not one of my strongest suits. I can cook, but I'm not fabulous at it. So it was a real treat to go to Marla's. And then she was involved during COVID and helping people get these food
Mm.
boxes. So, she would always reach out to me, and just, it was just, and then also there are these singles events for older people here, and Marla comes to some of those. So we've met at some of
Mm.
those events and some of those different programs.
Right. We did
Great.
hang out in the same circles though, because like
In the
back
beginning.
then in the late 90s, there was
Yes,
like a
then we did.
Hebra,
Mhm.
and we all went to like a smaller shul, and we all were like friends, and it was a weird circle. Like it
Mhm.
wasn't like, and we're still all like in one way or another connected 30 something years later.
Mhm.
Like it wasn't Baltimore young Israel type people wasn't so big back then.
Mm.
And so we all found each other and were together. So like she's very good friends with people that I was friends with, but we weren't very good friends, but
Mm.
because you're in that group, you're automatically together. Like
It sounds
it's
like a
just an
nice group.
automatic kind
It
of thing.
sounds like
Yeah,
it's
it
a
was a
nice
weird
place.
world.
I'm part of many different groups. I kind of lead a double life, and we'll get into
Right.
that more
She
with the
does.
religious
She
level, because
does.
I
I
know
feel like
people.
we all do. We all have that double life.
Right. And don't let her sell herself short. She is like all in all these. She writes divrei Torahs for places, and she goes to minions, and she does all kinds of things. So she's pretty involved in the community. So
Okay.
yeah.
Well, okay, that's really nice. That's nice to hear. So how long so you guys go like way back?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, very nice.
Yeah.
So Hannah, I did want to ask, how did how was dating in the past? Like, how did you meet your late husband?
Oh, okay. I love this story. This is amazing. Not the usual way you would meet someone. So when I was in college, I saw a lot of my friends have significant others, long-term boyfriends, getting married, getting engaged. And there I was about to graduate college, and I didn't have a significant other. I didn't have a boyfriend. I thought I was such a failure, whatever. But I had to go on with life. And I'd majored in education. I'd gotten a job, and I found an apartment on the Upper West Side because I'm sorry, Max, that you don't like the Upper West Side.
I know. I was going to say, I can hear his eyes roll.
It was not the same. It's whatever he's saying about the community. It wasn't like that in 1979. When I graduated college, the Upper West Side was the place to be if you were young and modern Orthodox and single. That was just where you met people. So I got an apartment there. The only problem was the apartment wouldn't be available until the fall. So I needed a sublet, and friends of mine connected me with someone for a sublet for July and August. So I get into the sublet. It happens to be in the same building where I ended up getting my regular apartment. And back then, this was a building called the Cambridge House. I don't think it exists as an apartment building anymore. It was on West 86th and Riverside Drive. And there was a switchboard. In addition to those of us who had our own little black rotary phone, there was a switchboard phone in the building.
Oh, for like secretaries?
Yeah, there was just like a front desk, like in a hotel, and we had mailboxes also. And so someone calls on the switchboard phone one night, and I pick up the phone, and I was taking the place of a girl named Mimi who was in Israel for the summer. And the person says, "Is Mimi there?" And I said, "No, she's in Israel for the summer. Can I take a message for her?" And he just forgot about Mimi. He said, "Well, who's this I'm talking to?" So I told him who I was. I said, "This is Hannah Fruchter." "Oh, I'm Craig Heller. Are you related to Harold Chaim Fruchter?" That's my brother.
Oh my gosh.
I said, "Yeah, he's my brother." And then after that Jewish geography piece, we went into a million different topics. And then a few days later, I see he's putting notes in my mailbox. And then he comes over on a Shabbos afternoon. I happen to have either not been home or sleeping or whatever. But eventually we got together. The first thing we actually did together was go jogging in Riverside Park. And I knew nothing about jogging. I knew nothing about anything. But we started out as just friends. And then it eventually became a dating relationship. And I remember I had gone to Neve Yerushalayim.
So
You'd never know it
crazy.
now, but my junior year of college, I went to Neve Yerushalayim.
Oh, wow.
And I remember I was helping, Craig was a Baal Teshuva. He was becoming religious. And he knew my brother and sister-in-law because when he was becoming religious, he did the hospitality at Lincoln Square Synagogue. And my brother and sister-in-law had at that time lived on the Upper West Side and had hosted him several times. So where was I getting at now? I'm blanking out where I was.
That you guys were friends first.
Yeah, so we were friends first. Oh, yeah, so I was helping him with his Hebrew. So I was telling a friend of mine that I'd gone to Neve Yerushalayim with, who had recently gotten married. I said, "I met this wonderful guy in my building. I'm helping him with his Hebrew. He's so nice. We just really flow together." And she looks at me. She goes, "I don't know, Hannah, but isn't the guy supposed to know more than the girl?" I did not listen to that advice, and I am very happy that I didn't.
I don't know what that really means, but okay.
I don't either. I guess she was saying, like, don't marry a guy who knows less than you religiously, which I thought was the silliest thing ever.
Yes, that sounds a little silly to me, but I mean.
But yeah, I mean, Craig and I just kind of connected. It was just different because everybody, when I was in college, people would fix me up. I didn't go to a formal shadchan or anything, but friends would fix me. "Oh, I got the greatest guy for you." And the dates were always awkward. And everybody who thought they had the greatest guy for me was certainly not the greatest guy for me. And here I just meet this guy out of a switchboard phone. So go figure.
I was going to say, it sounds like your first date was actually the conversation you had on your switchboard. But
I guess so.
I digress. I'll let you take that one. I think that's adorable. That's so nice. Yeah. Oh my gosh. And Marla, how did you meet your ex?
So I went to work at a restaurant, and I got there, and they told me that they don't normally train the night that I got there. And I'm like, "I just drove from Austin to San Antonio to train. So you're going to train me?" And about 30 minutes into I had been running a restaurant for years, so I didn't really need to be trained. But about 30 minutes into my shift, the cocktail waitresses husband got into a car wreck and I was the only extra person at the restaurant. So they put me as a cocktail waitress. And my ex was there with a guy that I had met I had just moved to South Texas and I was trying to meet people. And so I had gone like to the JCC and I had met some people and he was with this guy that I had met through the people. And we started talking and we spent the evening after I got off work at midnight talking the whole night. And so we weren't religious and he was getting out of active duty on the Army and I was looking for a roommate. And so the next day we moved in together.
Whoa. Wow. Okay.
Ours is not romantic like Hannah and Craig's.
That's like a big step though, from like not meeting someone to like roommates.
So he had whatever. We had talked and we had so we weren't religious, but we both wanted to be religious. So we had talked about that and that he wanted to be religious. I wanted to have a religious household. He had said, "Oh, I'm going to marry you." And I'm like, "Yeah, whatever." So he needed a roommate. I needed a roommate. We decided we'll move in together. If it doesn't work out, we'll just be roommates. And 5 months later, we eloped.
Wow. Okay. These are both like fantastic stories. Yeah. Totally different from what you hear from my generation. Let me tell you, we're very boring people.
I don't know. I just have two boys that just got engaged and both of them were pretty dramatic. Like I was like, don't you want to go out with her more than 3 times before you get engaged? Because like that didn't work out so well for your mom. So you want to rethink that process.
Oh my gosh. They both dated
child of what not to do. I'm like, are you following any of Marla's track in your relationship? Then you might want to rethink it. So.
I mean, maybe sometimes it does work out with you love at first sight. I wouldn't say it never works out, but who knows?
I will tell you, I had 3 good friends. There was 3 of us. And one had been dating her husband since they were like 12. One had dated her husband all through college. And I moved in with my husband the day I met him. So both my friends were like, I really don't think that your marriage is going to work out. Like, I'm pretty sure like this is not going to work for you. And both of them got divorced. One got divorced within 2 years of being married. One got divorced within 3 years of being married. And I was married 29 years. So probably should have gotten divorced when they told me to, but you never know. Like, you don't know. You really don't know.
I mean, right. Each relationship has its own steps. So you really don't know, but, that is a crazy story, but I guess, but Mazel Tov on your sons. They just got engaged.
Both are sons.
Both my sons, and they're getting married within 9 days of each other, 2 weeks before Pesach.
Oh my goodness!
Oh, so they really wanted to put mom on the edge.
No, actually, Hannah, right? That I went to Shul. Did you hear this story? So I was in Cancun for Sukkot. And I was in Shul a lot the last days because I didn't really have anything to do. And at Parshas Breshis, I said, and my boys are older, they're 25 and 28. And I said, you know what? I'm going to come to Shul every Shabbos in Davin, Musaf, in Zechus of my boys getting married. And I started Parshas Breshis, and I have not missed Shul since.
Wow.
And I go during Torah reading, and I daven, and I actually daven Ala Musaf. I don't just daven Shemona Esrei. And one got engaged December 19th and one got engaged January 12th.
Beautiful.
That's so nice.
So
That's really
I'm pretty powerful. Don't mess with me.
No.
Because I got power.
So would that be
no one's messing with Marla.
My son married? Maybe that's how I'll get my son to find the right person.
You never know.
Oh my goodness.
I mean, you don't know what
he is.
We could blast his resume on Good for Shidduchim. Maybe he'll be a little embarrassed, but that's okay.
No, I wouldn't do that to him. He's probably going to I'll probably send this to him and he'll see it, but he's a great guy. He lives in Israel, actually, so maybe you'll meet him one day.
Okay. Oh, okay. Yeah, maybe we'll connect one day.
He's in Jerusalem, and I just came from a visit. I was visiting him in December. He lives in a neighborhood called Sad Simone, and meeting his friends, it reminded me of what the Upper West Side was in my day. Not today's Upper West Side, but that to me, that's like the Israel version of what the Upper West Side was for us.
Yeah. San Simone is it's part of Katamon. So there's like a
Right.
really nice,
Mhm.
yeah, it's a really nice
A lot
community
of
there.
nice young modern singles, and his friends are all wonderful.
I did want to ask you guys your own opinion. Now, since you've dated in the past, I know it's a little different than their conventional way of dating, but I was just wondering, what is it like now dating at your age and your relationship status, and how it's within the Jewish community, if there's any stigma attached to that as well. So whoever wants to answer first.
I would say it's what makes it a lot different is that we've all been alive a lot longer. So we've been touched by, nobody escapes without getting some kind of tragedy, disappointment, difficulties in their lives. Everybody has it. Even someone who looks like they have it all probably has less than the rest of us, not necessarily money wise, but just in terms of whatever disappointments they've had in their lives. So if you're in your 50s, 60s, 70s, whatever it is, and you're going on a date with someone in a similar age bracket, we have all had different things in our lives: marriages, divorces, deaths of close relatives, whatever tragedies people have in their lives, different complications. So to me, it's not so much what happens to you. Maybe you had trouble, maybe one of your kids got into trouble, who knows? But it's not so much what happens to you as how you react to it. So I've dated guys who will sit there on the date and complain, whether it's complaining about the ex-wife or complaining about their kids or about their neighbor or about their rabbi or lack of rabbi, and I'm not connected to anybody, and I don't this, and poor me, and blah, blah, blah. And that's not the kind of person I want to be around, because that person is bringing a lot of negative energy, and it really gets to me. And when they can't admit they're wrong, like I can say, that dating experience, I can admit and I can say, maybe in this dating relationship, I could have done X, Y, Z, and maybe that's why it didn't work out. I can accept some responsibility, but some guys just will not accept responsibility for anything. Some will just monopolize the conversation. They will just talk all about everything that they've accomplished in their lives. And if you're 50, 60, 70 years old and you've accomplished a lot in your life, especially if you're a man and you've had a high level career and whatever, and you spend the whole day talking about how wonderful you are, and you don't seem to care anything. Marla's laughing. You probably had that experience too. And you don't care anything about the woman and what she's done with her life, even if career-wise it might not be what you've done. Maybe they've done other things. So those are some of the things that bother me, and some of the things that make it different. And whatever mishigas you had when you were younger, it just intensifies, because as we get older, we get more set in our ways. And anybody who says, I don't have any mishigas, they're not telling you the truth. Right. So anybody in any age has it, and it just gets bigger as you get older.
Yeah, Mother, do you have anything to add?
So mine is probably a little bit more generalized. Like I feel like when the people that are our age, I feel like they fall into like a couple of different categories. Like you have the ones who are almost desperate, man or woman, to get remarried. Like they that's all their focus in life is. You can see it in comments and groups that we're in. You can see it in life. That is their entire world, is to get remarried. And whether they're a widow or a divorcee or never been married, when you're in our age, they start to feel, everybody feels like you're on the downward side of your 50s, like you're not going up in your ages anymore. You're going down in your ages. So I feel like there's this one group of people that are like obsessed with the fact that they need to find that forever, whatever. But then you have the other group of people who, then these aren't the only two, but then you have the other group of people that are like so determined to only find what they think they want, that their checklist and their boxes are so defined that they can't compromise. And those are your two main types of groups of people when you're older. You do have healthy people that have done the work and, could have a healthy relationship and can do that. And even those people a lot of them are like that. But the difference is when you're older is that you're almost more scared. Like when you're young and you have your whole life in front of you and you see somebody and you just see your whole future, you see like nothing negative. Like you don't know what to see because you haven't been through anything negative. You haven't had the fights with your spouse or the death of your spouse or any of those things, and even with widowers, you've had things in your marriages. I'm sure Craig and Hannah did not get along 365 days a year.
Oh yeah, I will tell you about it. If you think my house was peaceful, forget it.
Right. And just like for me, for a divorcee, my house wasn't necessarily always Balagan, So what happens when you're younger is you see the future. But what happens when you're older is you see the past. And so it's harder for older people. I have the mentality of here and now, start fresh, move forward. But that doesn't mean I don't have baggage. And that doesn't mean I don't have triggers. And that doesn't mean I don't have my history. But when you're younger, you don't have any of that. You don't have that. So it's a hard place to be when you're older, to be able to say to somebody, can we just be in the here and now? When you're younger, you're in the here and now. You don't even have a clue what your future is going to look like. But now it's like I've dated people. It's kind of a big joke in my world that I only date red flags and dumpster fires. So I'm like the perfect example of like what's going on with older people. I dated very nice men. I always say I don't date until I date, and then I stop dating the person, and then I'm like I don't date, and then I date again. But it's a really fine, hard place to be when you're older because you do live in the past. I was sitting with a friend of mine at an event, and she literally said to me, my next husband is going to, I don't even remember exactly what she said, but it was 100% related to child raising. And I was like, honey, you are 59 years old. Nobody's raising a child with you anymore. Like, you got to move your mentality up. Like, you need to be, okay, maybe my future didn't turn out the way I thought it was going to, but that doesn't mean it's not my future and not my retirement, not my plan. Your plan didn't necessarily work the way you wanted, but that doesn't mean you can't have your plan. So people in our age bracket, just, it's a hard place. It's hard to be not always forward thinking, what if, or how's this going to turn out, or I'm looking for marriage. And then you have all the other dynamics. You have the, when you're younger and you live in a world and you're in your box and you're in your shidduch box, that's who you're dating. In our world, you might be completely Shomer Negia, but the person you're dating isn't, or you might be like an early riser and the person that you're dating isn't. You don't have that issue when you have little kids. You're all early risers. You know what I mean?
Right.
So like just in general, you have things. You might be a drinker. You might want to go home and have a glass of wine at night and your person doesn't. And these aren't things that you have when you're 20, 21, 22, raising little kids. Like your life is completely different. You might be an extrovert and they might be an introvert. And that's I am the queen of I'm too much. Like every person that meets me is like, God, you're a lot, so it's a weird place to be when you're older. You don't want to give up who you are. You've worked 40 years to become who you are. So the whole dynamic of older dating is completely different and difficult, very, very difficult and very small. While early on dating is very large, there is a huge amount of people that they say, oh, you've just not met, you can't get to the right person if you have shidduch issues. In our world, it's very small. So like you might have dated somebody that you're close with is now dating and you think to yourself, girl code, right? Guy code.
I guess so. Yeah.
But that's what happens. I went to a Shabbaton 2 weeks ago and I was hanging out with 3 women and we all dated the same guy.
Wow.
Like,
right. So you're saying the pool of men at your I guess at a specific age is like much smaller.
And women, pool of men and women is
men
much
and
smaller.
women.
I would say the pool of men and women who are worth dating. There's a lot of them who are not worth dating. Right,
but I think in general it's even smaller and it's very connected. It's very connected. So like, and it's very more vocal. Like when they're younger, let's give an example. When they're younger, somebody might have had a lot of anxiety in high school or college or be an anxious person, but they you don't talk about that when you're looking for shidduchs for them, because that could prohibit them from getting a shidduch, right? So that is a conversation they have with each other later on. But in our world, it's very, very vocal. Like, I could date somebody and the guy would be like, oh my God, she's so much. Like, he'll be telling everybody that. Or other women will be like, she's a lot. Like, you need to know she's a lot. Where you would never say that to somebody who's 20, 21, 22 years old. We're very opinionated when you're older. So it's harder. It's definitely.
Is it just because, I was going to say, is it just because you feel like you lived and you know yourself so much, and there's been so much molding into your identity within the community? Like, why is it so much more vocal during dating than it is for younger people who are dating?
Correct me if I'm wrong, Hannah, but I think we're more protective of each other.
We are. We're very protective of each other, and we kind of know different things that guys say and do. And we're just, I think that's what's difference between the single men and the single women at our age group. Not everybody, there's not everybody's the same, but we single women talk to one another about our difficulties with dating. I'm not so sure that the single men actually talk to one another the way we.
I think they do, and I think the women talk to them also. I think it could be that general. Yeah. I mean, I know that I've had friends who want me to set them up with somebody, and I'll go to the guy and I'll be like, you need to stay away from her. Like, she's not right for you. Or I'll go to the guy and I'll come back to the woman. Like, we have standards. Like, like I will tell you, like, I have a friend that called me up about a guy, and I said, I asked about him, and he cheated on his wife. And like, that's a hard no. Like, that's a hard no for everybody.
You can't do that.
You cheat on your wife, there's no tshuva you're doing, and you don't have that when you're 20, 21 years old. But I have another friend who's talking to a man that I know very well, and I knew their marriage very well. And his wife is best friends with one of my best friends. And I called my friend and I said, okay, did I hear that there was like abuse? Or because I know he doesn't talk to his older kids. She's like, no, he's just a very hands-off dad. He didn't really have a relationship with his kids. So when they divorced, the kids really, really went more with the mom. So then I called my friend. I'm like, you do you, boo. Like, there's nothing I can tell you as a reason that you wouldn't, like, everybody has a right to be happy and has a right to try. So those aren't compelling reasons. Whereas we're all sitting around going, yeah, but he's a complete jerk. Like, we would never date him, but she doesn't know him. And and this is what my friend said to me. She said, everybody at our age, everybody is somebody's ex, somebody's widow, somebody's something, somebody who's never been married. And we all wonder why that is, male or female, So it's a whole different dynamic when you're older than when you're younger. And that's what a lot of people don't understand. And a lot of these shadchanim that we deal with are just so desperate to get these older people married that they don't even think about it. Like, I mean, I know probably Hannah has also been set up with people that I'm like, what? Totally inappropriate. Like, not even bad people, just like from where your Yiddishkeit level is. You're like in completely different places. And it's not even like a secret. Like, Dafka, you're in different places, Yeah,
I've declined several matches on Saw You at Sinai. Thank God I cannot go to a traditional shadchan because I don't fit the mold. They would laugh at me. I am not of that religious level for the Orthodox.
I was gonna ask if either of you use shadchanim or try to do like the formal way of dating.
So Hannah, she actually uses more formal than I do, believe it or not.
Oh, really?
Because okay. Saw You at Sinai.
Maybe I'm misunderstanding.
No, but yet you use Saw You at Sinai.
I do use Saw You at Sinai.
Yeah, I do. That is the system.
But I'm thinking about dropping it because I'm not meeting. I'm doing one of those Zoom dating things on Sunday. It's the second time I'm doing it. We'll see if I have any success with it. I'm thinking about not paying membership anymore.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
But I don't, I don't do I don't.
I can't go to a traditional shadchan. I don't fit.
She's very modern, but I don't date until I date. and then it's a red
Right.
flag, and then I don't date anymore. So
Oh, no.
mine's different. I always tend to meet like somebody that I should definitely not be talking to in some weird random way. Like, I mean, like seriously, like the last guy I dated, my friend said to me, he said he's going to kill me for saying this out loud, but my friend said to me, I was having a birthday dinner in Israel. I went to Israel and I was having a birthday dinner, and my friend's like, I have this friend. He's been divorced like a year and a half, and he doesn't really ever get out, and I need him to get out. And you're such a good person to like get out to. So I'm going to send him to your birthday dinner, and I'm going to tell him it's because I want to say hello to you on Zoom, on video. And I'm telling him he needs to go. He can just go sit a minute and go. So clearly he's already like told me this is a guy that's not ready to date, not ready to get out there. So Marla, being Marla, I have to like, figure out how to date him. So I met him at the dinner. We started talking. We spent the week I was in Israel together. We've been dating, so he very much is like, I really don't think I'm ready for a relationship while he's in a relationship with me. So this is like, so I was at this thing with friends a couple of weeks ago, and my friend goes, I'm going to find the most red flag guy out there, and I'm going to introduce him to you so that you'll say you'll date again. Because I always was like, I'm not dating again. So my friend was next to me. He's like, oh, I already did that. Like, we're already there. I already did that. So like,
oh my goodness.
I think one advantage one advantage that I have is I remember when I lived in Highland Park, New Jersey, I had gone to this therapist, and I remember talking to her about different issues with my job, with my marriage, with my kid, my two kids. And she said to me that I was very, very perceptive. And I think maybe that's a good thing when I'm going on these dates, because as a guy is talking to me on a date, in my head, I'm like, bullshit, this guy's a phony. I know it. One time I remember standing outside with the guy I was dating, and it was a windy night, and he's talking to me. And actually in my head, a physical red flag was flying in the wind. I'm like, get away from this guy. This is a red flag. Do not. And I am so perceptive that I can snuff it out. And I think that might annoy other people because I can see different things, like, don't marry this person. This is not a good idea.
So I see the red flags, but I think it's a carnival. So I'm like, I'm there. Like this guy that I talked to, I told him, I'm like, you're like my marathon of red flags. Like when you run a marathon and you don't start with a marathon, you start with a bunch of smaller races. So I was like, all my other red flags just led me right up to you. You're my marathon of red flags.
Oh,
so
my goodness.
That's a big joke in the world. But that's what happens. That's like a perfect example of women our age, or even men our age, who are, they want to get married. They want that relationship that they didn't have, that they don't have any longer for whatever reason. And they will ignore stuff that you would never ignore when you were younger, or you shouldn't have ignored when you were younger. But we ignore things. Like we truly give people many more chances and then stay in that world with them. And it's just different. And Hannah has a whole nother situation because she's very modern. So a lot of the men that are out there in our age are, I find, to be more modern, or they're super religious. It's hard to find
little in between.
There's not very many in between. Like I'm kind of an in-betweener. Like I'm more religious than Hannah, but I am definitely not yeshiva-ish. So for me, I'm in like this weird place because like I had a guy that checked me out, like, called all my references, did all that. And he was like, yeah, I feel like we just don't have, we're not, and I was like, no, like just no. But on paper, we look like we would go together, So it's hard because and for Hannah being more modern, it's almost harder for her to meet people because there's no collective of that.
Yeah, I mean, I should really create my own branch of Judaism because I don't really fit any of the categories.
I feel like that's also like for people who are like in their 20s and 30s also when they're looking, I personally was told, I'm not going to find somebody who I'm looking for because I was very much like more, I guess, accepting in some areas of religion than I guess other people were. I'm not like, I couldn't be put in a box really. Right. So I wasn't on one end and I wasn't on the other end. which happens to a lot of people. There's a lot of mixing and matching, and that should be okay. And I guess like it's the same when you get older. It's unfortunate that it's not hasn't like opened up. It's still kind of like
Sorry, go
yeah.
ahead. Uh,
Oh no, this is okay.
So to that, I have two boys that just got engaged, right? So I have one also not in the box, and he also had a very difficult time because he's not in that box. So I agree with you 100%. That doesn't necessarily change. And it's actually, I think, more prevalent, believe it or not. I think it's more prevalent when they're younger. The issue that what made me, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, but what made me really think was that when we're older, it's actually almost, even though we're dynamically different, we can cross lines that younger kids don't cross. So Hannah might be a feminist, but she might be with somebody who goes to a more black hat type shul, and they would get along great because they're older, they're calmer, they're more accepting, they can live with each other and their differences. It's our kids. So I dated somebody who was much more modern than even me. He was very modern, even for he was pushing my acceptance of things. Okay. And my kids hated it. My kids are basically more religious than I am, but they were like, you can't be with somebody who's more modern than you. I'm like, oh, I don't care. I don't care if he goes to shul as long as he davens. Like, I don't care. And then my kids are like, what do you mean he doesn't go to shul? Like, he has to go to shul 3 times a day. So I think in our world, we're very much more accepting. Like I dated a man that was Lubavitch, and he was like, I don't really care if you're Lubavitch. Like, I'm going to go to Lubavitch shul. You do you. He's like, I'm not going to eat Brox on Yontiv. And I was like, well, I can't date you.
Well, that might be a deal breaker for me.
That might be a deal breaker.
Oh my goodness.
It's probably not. But it was more for me. Lubavitch was just a little too much because I want somebody who will go out with me and do things with me. I'm very active. But Hannah could easily date somebody that would go to my shul. I could easily date somebody who would go to Hannah's shul. But if we were 20, that would never happen. So
I think there's a little more fluidity in terms. Okay.
Right. But it's our kids.
I think it's more like what kind of person is the guy. My kids really wouldn't care where he's at religiously. He's a nice Jewish guy. They don't care if he's Reform or Orthodox or anything in between.
I don't think that's true. I think that if you were dating somebody, let's say you ended up somebody Lubavitch,
I wouldn't
religious. But let's just say you ended up, you don't know, you could meet the nicest, sweetest, most wonderful guy, and then y'all work it out together. I think your kids would have an opinion on that. I think you just
they might not agree with the Lubavitch. I don't think I would either, to tell you the truth. I don't picture it happening.
Right. So, but it's just an example. Like I think that your kids would have, sorry, I didn't mean to move my thing. I think your kids would have. You tend to date people that are in line with them. But I think I think that's my point, is that if we went out of the norm, it would not be us. It would be our families. Whereas when you're younger, it's them. Not right.
I mean, it's very important to me that if I marry again, that whoever I marry is going to like my kids and get along well with them. If my kids notice that if my kids don't like that person and they don't like my kids, because I think my kids are both very likable people, and I have 2 grandkids and they're very likable. They're lovable, actually. So if the guy cannot get along with my kids and grandkids, that is a major red flag, no matter what religious level he is.
And you don't have that when you're younger. That's only something you have when you're older. Also, there's kids liking who you're dating. That's what I'm talking about. Also, is that there are many people that will not go out unless their kids have checked them out.
No, I don't do that. I first get, because I can pretty much sniff out the garbage, very fast. So I won't really meet my kids till later on.
Right. But there are people, they'll check out their resumes and they'll say yes or no, or determine.
So you're saying the kids they might know. So it sounds like there's more like a shift in like control. Roles, right? In the roles, it's like the moms were like doing all that, and now it's the kids that are doing all that.
Right. My parents are no longer alive, so
no. But she's saying when your kids were getting married, you were checking out their people. But when you're dating somebody, the kids tend to do that more. Like
right now
they're like, Mom, who are you dating? Who is that?
Right.
What's
Right.
he
It's
like?
exactly right.
Where's he from?
Right. Another dynamic
That's
you
so
don't have when
interesting.
you're younger. Right.
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 True.
Wow. So
Yeah.
I also wanted to ask you guys, does your community, is there a lot of um what's the word I'm looking for? Events like singles events, and you mentioned a couple Shabbatones. I was just wondering if you guys have any opinions on how they're run, if they're run well, if it's actually beneficial, or like sometimes people like my friends are like, those are a waste of time, or they're too expensive, or they're not fun. So just wondering your opinion on events in your community.
Let me go first.
Go ahead.
Okay. You're saying
Sure.
completely different things. Okay.
Okay.
First of all, Shabbatones and events are completely different than a social circle. So I will
Yeah,
say,
for sure.
so from events perspective, the events are always very much the same people and the same things and not really very productive. However, and one of the things I feel like our community has done very well in Baltimore, and we are actually becoming known for this, and actually communities in like even New York are kind of jealous of us because there are so many Jews and singles and older singles in New York, and there's always something, but it's not as organized. In Baltimore, a couple of years ago, we became a very organized older crowd. What happened was a Shabbaton happened, and it was like 20 to 70. And some of the older crowd were very upset, and they said to this man, "You need to do a Shabbaton for older people." And the older crowd put it together. We had like 200 people. It wasn't really productive from a Shidduch situation, but it was extremely productive from a meeting people situation. And I think some things have happened from that. But at that point, what we call the over 55 crowd, it's not really 55, but whatever, over 55 crowd became a unit. And there are certain people in this town that have worked very hard to make a social circle for those people. And I will tell you, this is my own personal thing. My divorce was very similar to my marriage. I was a single married mom. My ex was military. He was gone for days, weeks, months, years at a time. He wasn't very involved. We didn't get along. Probably only stayed married so long because he was gone so much. So I was basically a single married mom, and I had a lot of singles over. So when I got divorced, I was like, oh, these are already my friends. I don't need a single scene. I have tons of friends. My circle is very large. So I was like, when this all started a few years ago, I was like, this is ridiculous. Like, I don't need to be part of this. Why would I be part of a single scene? And then I realized they're all having lunch together once a month, or they're all on these chats. This is a very organized chat. They have a chat, and then they have subcategories. And if you want to go to movies, you get on the movies category. And if you want to go into dinner, you do this. If you want to do outside activities, I made fun of it at first, but it's actually ingenious. And
Okay.
so they're super organized, and they're constantly recruiting new people to join it as we meet new people. So our world in Baltimore, I was like, they're all hanging out together, and these are my friends, right? Why am I such a snob that I can't be part of the single scene? Whereas Hannah embraces the single scene. She loves it. She loves people, and she does her married friends and her single friends and her activities and her whatever, and her widow stuff, and she does everything. And I was like, no, I will never be part of the scene. But I'm like, damn it, they're all like having lunch. There's 50 people having lunch together, and I love 50 people. So like, I want to be there. So it's a great scene in Baltimore. From a Shidduch perspective, no. But from a social environment and a healthy place for us to be, because we don't have our kids and we're a lot of empty nesters and having a social world, it's amazing in Baltimore. And it's really growing, and it's becoming known on the map as a place that singles that are older can go to have support and have a world. Whereas there are larger communities like New York that don't have that. I mean, I happen to be friends with some groups in New York. So I go up to New York and I do things with them also, but Baltimore's really there. But from a events perspective, not so much, but okay, that was my
Yeah,
soapbox.
so you were saying about it's so funny you were mentioning about that chat because I can't keep up with it. There are so many subgroups, I just can't even keep up.
There's
Every
so much
once in a
going
while, I'll
on.
go to one,
There's
but
always
yeah, I
something
have a
going
lot of
on.
what?
There's always something going on.
There's always something going on. I just,
Yeah.
I work so many different jobs and I wear so many different hats that I just cannot keep up with all of it. But yeah, I do have a different chevra. I have friends here and friends there in different demographics. There are Shabbatons that I've gone to. I don't really expect when this group gets together, when I go to them, or for the Shabbatons, I never go in expecting to meet anybody I'm going to date because usually I don't. But I go with the idea that I'm going to have a good time. And I usually do. If I take away that pressure that I have to meet that right person and I just go and have a good time, I do have a good time because it's a wonderful chevra. And another thing that our community, I think, is doing much better at now than they used to is there's been more of an initiative to invite single people for Shabbos meals. I mean, lately it's kind of cooled down. There haven't been as many hosts. Maybe it's because of the weather, maybe because of the flu going around. I don't know. But there's a bunch of different groups. There's a few shuls, and people do reach out to try to invite singles over. So I do appreciate that a lot. I know that Ner Tamid has been, Rabbi Motzen at Ner Tamid has been doing a lot of outreach to try to include singles. And then there's also an initiative of people in the shul to meet other families from the shul. So that's been very connective for me. So that's been very helpful.
Right.
And has it been an issue though? Like if like, do you find that some people don't want to approach you because either you are a widow or you are divorced and they're like nervous to like invite you over? No.
No, we don't carry a contagious disease.
Right. I think
No,
people are
I'm
just busy. I think that
I don't
people
know.
I don't think there's any stigma against divorced, widowed, older singles. I don't think it matters. I mean,
we have a lot of people in that demographic here.
Yeah.
Both
People will
demographics.
say, oh, I never get invited. Oh, I don't. We're not those people. Hannah and I are not your right demographic to talk to about that because we don't do that. Like if
people like us, we're likable people.
Well, that, and also we will call people, both of us. There are people, there are a lot, and don't get me wrong, there are a lot of older and younger singles that sit home alone because they won't call somebody and they won't bother somebody, or that's not their personality. That's not who we are. So if we want a meal out, we'll call somebody and we'll be like,
okay, good. No, that's always good. So, people always, I feel like when I asked, I would also ask like, hey, are you home for Shabbos? I would really like to come for a meal or something like that. I never had any shame, but my parents told me, they were like, Sarah, that's not good manners.
No, it's good.
But I was like, what am I supposed to do? Like, if I want to be if I'm somewhere in particular for Shabbos, or I was a single person, like, what do you want me to do? You know, I'm looking for a meal. I would love to like hang out with whoever. So, okay. Yeah.
So what I would do, like sometimes I just can't take the rejection. So I will call 3 different families and it's not a good weekend for any of them. And then I'm like, okay, I am not calling a 4th person because I can't take the rejection. I'm staying home and I'm inviting a couple friends over. I'm going to create my own Shabbos, social Shabbos. And I think that's really up to us to create our own happiness sometimes. If the world isn't giving it to you right now, you can go out and make it for yourself. And that's what I tried to do during COVID when we had to be by ourselves. And I didn't have my immediate family here for the whole time like a lot of people did. So I decided that I was going to make Shabbos special. I dressed up for every Shabbos, davened at home, sang Zemirot, really made Shabbos into Shabbos. And I took a nice walk, saw people outside, read books. And, I think it's all what we make of our situation.
That is exactly the takeaway, that if they take nothing else away from this podcast, as older singles, a lot of times younger singles, I would say, get thought of more. Like they're trying to set them up. They're trying to do things. And the one thing with older singles, and again, we're not your other demographic because we make this happen. This is what I try to tell my friends all the time. You just have to live happy. You can't be woe is me. You can't be what ifs. You can't be what people should have done for me or what I'm entitled to, or and the older singles, that is how a lot of them live. And we all suffer from it. I suffer from it. Hannah suffers from it. We all suffer from it. But it's how you deal with it. Take your woe is me, have your 10 minutes, put it in a box and move on. Because if you are an older single, widowed, divorced, never been married, and all you do is feel sorry for yourself or freak out about how you want to be married, then you can't live your life. So if there's anything people take away from us is just be in the moment and be now, and don't go into a Shabbaton desperately trying to get married, and don't not go to singles events because you think you're too good for it, or don't like not call somebody and invite yourself out for a meal if you want it, or invite people to your house for a meal if you want it. Just make your own moments, because if not, Hannah's the most active person I've ever seen. She's the
really.
I mean, I believe it.
You can't even feel bad for her. Like it's like people are like, oh, she's a widower. No, or widow because you're a woman. But no, she is like out there and she does stuff and she has tons of friends. And I mean, not to take away the fact that Craig died, we all like appreciate that, but like it's not. She's not a victim at all. Being a widow, like she does her widow art. You should see her art. It's insane. I've watched it.
She does. Oh, Hannah, I didn't know you did that.
Yeah, if you friend me on Facebook, I can show you. There's the credit really goes to a woman named Stephanie Severe Perlman. She used to be my neighbor when she was married, and then her husband tragically died. She moved to Silver Spring, and her husband tragically died of a heart attack. And then she started a branch. There's this big Orthodox widows group called Samchenu, and she started it's very, very Hasidish and frum. It's based in New York. She started a brand, something separate from it, but like a group for widows in Baltimore, Silver Spring. And in the beginning, I went to a few of them. The ladies are way more frum than I am, but it's okay. They were all very accepting. And then COVID happened. So it occurred to Stephanie to start this art class on Zoom. And it had such a success that the lady who teaches it is a young, 30s. She's very lively. And it's like, make a line here, make a shape here, do this, now erase it, and then you have a picture. And I have so much fun with it.
Okay, good. Hannah, I just wanted to ask you one last question. You wrote in your email to me and Max, you wrote, I'm realizing it's better to be alone than to be with the wrong spouse. And I just wanted to know what exactly you meant by that.
Okay, so here's what I mean by it is, yes, it can be lonely to be single, but you will be a lot more lonely if you're in a marriage and the marriage is not working out. I mean, I remember during the times when my husband and I were having fights and not talking to each other for a few days, how awful that was. And it was so nice when we would make up and come together again. You can really be alone in a marriage. And then if it's really bad, you're facing a divorce and all of that. And marriage takes a lot of work. It's not easy. And if my husband could come back to life today, he would acknowledge that he was not easy to live with. And I acknowledge that I'm not easy to live with. Nobody's easy to live with. And I think that both parties have to be committed to be willing to work it out. Both parties have to be willing to say, yeah, I could have done this better. I could be, I could change it. I could, and going to marriage counseling really helps in that situation. But if you marry the wrong person and people think, oh, this is wonderful, I don't have to worry about her. Now she's married, she's found her right person. Meanwhile, you're living in the house with this person that you can't stand and that you're not getting along with. You're better off not trying to work around somebody else's needs. And you can really be alone in a marriage if it's the wrong marriage. Marla could probably speak to that better than I could.
I was gonna say that there's a lot of parallels that happen, even though with people that are much younger that get married or are in the dating scene, and also on the older spectrum of when people are dating, and in terms of Marla said, like, there's like this anxiety, I guess, in some people, like, I have to get married again. Like, I have to find my second spouse or my second partner. And when you're just starting to date, there's also this anxiety within the community. And also that's like very much on you. Like, you have to get married. You have to start a family. Like, so I feel like it may not be exactly the same exact like dynamic, but I feel like there are a lot of parallels in terms of that.
Right. It's true. I mean, it's the same. That doesn't go away just because you're older. It's almost more pressure. It's almost more, like stressful, and some people desperately want to prove that they can be in a healthy, happy relationship, for those of us that are divorced, and then you've got somebody like Hannah who was in a healthy, happy relationship, and she's dating all these divorced men that like weren't in a healthy, happy relationship. So, but there's a lot of parallels in like the stress to get married, and you overlook things. That's, I think, the key is like, you can't overlook the negatives, not even red flags, just incompatibilities. And people overlook that, and then they get married. And then that's why the divorce rate for second marriages are so high, because they overlook all these things that they shouldn't overlook. And if you reject them, then you become the person that can't be pleased. Like there's, like,
so you can't win.
You
just can't win when you're like that, right?
Right.
Yeah. So. Wow. Well, thank you so much, ladies, for being on the podcast.
Our pleasure.
I know we touched upon a lot of sensitive like subjects, so I do appreciate you sharing and being open and allowing people to hear your stories. So I thank you so much. And
thank you. This is a pleasure to be here, and I just love your
fun. Okay, good. Again, I'm sorry Max isn't here.
Yeah, it would have been a lot of fun, but we'll have to
maybe
join.
He'll like edit it and put himself in it somehow. I don't know, but okay. Until next time, everybody. Bye.
And remember, everything will always be about Shidduchim. Catch you in the next episode.